A federal agent just shot and killed a woman in Minneapolis during an immigration enforcement operation. And if you think this is just another headline, you're missing what's actually happening right now across American cities. This isn't about whether you support or oppose deportations. This is about what happens when enforcement becomes militarized, and the rules of engagement start shifting in ways nobody's talking about publicly. Here's what we know happened. Immigration and customs enforcement agents were conducting an operation. A woman is dead. Federal agent pulled the trigger. The official line will be some version of threat assessment, officer safety, split-second decision. But here's the part that matters. We're rewatching the operational tempo of immigration enforcement accelerate at a pace we haven't seen in decades. And with that acceleration comes something predictable. More confrontations. More force. More situations where someone ends up dead on American soil during what's technically a civil administrative process. Let me explain what that actually means. Deportation is not a criminal proceeding, it's administrative law. You're not being arrested for a crime when ICE shows up. You're being detained for a civil violation. But the enforcement apparatus treats it like a tactical operation. Ballistic vests, firearms, entry teams. The language is military, the mindset is enforcement first. And when you train people to operate that way and then deploy them into residential neighborhoods at scale, you get outcomes like Minneapolis. Now the federal government will investigate itself. That's the process. Department of Homeland Security reviews ICE action. Maybe the FBI gets involved if there's a civil rights angle. But understand what's really being measured here. Not whether the system failed. Whether the action fits within acceptable parameters of the system as designed. That's a very different calculation. You can have a killing that is technically justified under use of force protocols and still have a massive systemic problem. Those two things can both be true. What is happening right now is a stress test of how much enforcement action American communities will tolerate before there's political blowback. The current administration made a calculated decision that the public wants aggressive immigration enforcement. They're reoperating on the assumption that even controversial incidents won't shift that support as long as they can frame it as officer safety and criminal alien removal. Minneapolis is the first major test of that theory. Watch how the narrative gets shaped over the next 72 hours. Watch which details get emphasized. Watch which details disappear. Domestically, this fractures along predictable lines, but with some new pressure points. Sanctuary city policies are about to get tested in ways they haven't been before. Minneapolis is in Minnesota. Democratic governor. Mayor who'll face immense pressure from immigrant communities and progressive activists. But also facing a federal government that, as made clear, considers state and local resistance to immigration enforcement as obstruction. So you've got a constitutional standoff brewing. You've got community trust in law enforcement cratering in neighborhoods where ICE operates. And you've got local police departments trying to figure out how much distance to keep from federal operations they want no part of. The law enforcement community itself is watching this carefully. ICE agents know they're reoperating in an environment where one bad shooting can end careers and spark national outrage. They also know they're being pushed to increase arrest numbers and expand operations into jurisdictions that actively resist. That's a dangerous combination. High operational tempo plus political pressure plus hostile local environment equals elevated risk. Everyone in that system knows it. The question is whether anyone with authority is willing to pump the brakes. You're getting insider-level analysis here. Subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown when the headline drops. What changes now? Here's what changes after Minneapolis. Every ICE operation in a major city now carries the shadow of this incident. Local officials will be more aggressive in demanding notification and oversight. Community organizations will be more mobilized. And on the other side, ICE will likely double down on officer safety protocols, which means even more militarized presence, which creates even more tension. It's a feedback loop that doesn't de-escalate easily. The legal aftermath is going to be complex and slow. Family of the deceased will file civil suits. There will be state and federal investigations. Possibly criminal charges, though. Historically, those are rare in officer-involved shootings. What matters more than individual accountability is whether this incident creates any systemic change in how immigration enforcement operations are conducted. Based on historical patterns, probably not. What it does create is a reference point, a line that's been crossed. And now the question becomes how often that line gets crossed before it's no longer shocking. Think about the operational calculus ICE is running right now. They have directives from the top to increase enforcement. They have political cover from an administration that campaigned on this. They have legal authorities that are broad and not particularly constrained by local jurisdictions. The incentive structure is built for aggressive action. One death in Minneapolis doesn't change that incentive structure unless there's sustained political cost. So far, the political cost of aggressive immigration enforcement has been minimal for the current administration. But here's where it gets interesting. You can have public support for deportations in the abstract and still have massive backlash when enforcement looks like what it actually looks like. Military-style raids, women getting shot, families separated in front of news cameras. The polling on immigration is always more complicated than either side admits. People want border security and they want enforcement, but they also don't want what enforcement looks like when you see it up close. Minneapolis just made it very visible. Diplomatic complications. The international implications extend beyond just propaganda value for adversaries. Countries that receive deportees from the US are watching how this process unfolds. If American enforcement is seen as brutal or reckless, that complicates diplomatic negotiations on repatriation agreements. Some countries are already reluctant to accept deportees. Images of ICE operations going sideways give them more political cover to refuse. That creates a downstream problem where the US can detain people but can't actually remove them, which defeats the entire purpose. The other shadow over all of this is what happens in the next major incident, because there will be another one. When you scale up operations this aggressively, statistics take over. More operations mean more confrontations, mean more use of force, mean more chances for someone to die. The system is now on a trajectory where Minneapolis is not an outlier, it's a preview. What we're watching in real time is the normalization of militarized immigration enforcement on American streets. Every incident that doesn't result in systemic change makes the next incident more likely and more accepted. That's not a political statement. That's just how these systems work. The threshold for what's considered acceptable use of force shifts incrementally until what would have been unthinkable 10 years ago is standard operating procedure today. The reality nobody states. Minneapolis is going to fade from the news cycle faster than you think. There'll be another crisis, another headline. But the infrastructure that produced this outcome is still there. The policies are still there. The operational tempo is still increasing. And somewhere in another city, another ICE team is getting ready for another operation. They're doing the same risk assessments, same entry planning, same rules of engagement. And they're all wondering if their operation is going to be the next one that ends with someone dead and a city on edge. That's the reality nobody wants to state plainly. We've built a system where this outcome was predictable, and we're accelerating the conditions that make it more likely to happen again.